Hello friends, welcome to the session, and in this session we will discuss about the recent RBI steps to tackle the crisis which has been created because of the coronavirus pandemic, right? So all of you are aware that because of the pandemic there is a big lockdown, right? And because of the lockdown and because the entire world is dealing with the crisis, our economy is in a shock. The Sensex is going down. The businesses have stopped. People have started hoarding the money with them. Businesses have stopped and people are migrating from one place to another place. People are really in a state of shock. At this point of time, the bank has came up with several measures. So the primary measures include cutting the repo rate, reducing the reverse repo rate, cutting the CRR, and allowing extended loan repayment time, and assuring the depositors that your bank is not going to fall. So the RBI governor discussed and announced all these policies, right? If we talk about major policies, so there are four primary categories of the policies, and we will primarily focus upon the measures to expand the liquidity and measures to relax the repayment pressures, right? The steps have also been taken to reinforce the monetary transmission. What is the meaning of monetary transmission? Monetary transmission basically means whatever RBI is doing, the effect of all those actions like reducing the repo rate, reducing the CRR, effect of all those activities should be reaching out to the last person on the street. It should not be stuck just to the bank. So bank should be able to transmit the lower interest rate to the common public also. That is the monetary transmission. Liquidity basically means something which is very closer to the cash or the cash itself, right? So starting with the liquidity. In India, we are facing the liquidity crisis. Just before the corona crisis, we were dealing with the cyclical slowdown crisis, right? We were discussing that our GDP growth is going down. And in this corona crisis, liquidity crunch has actually increased. So if we talk about the monetary policy is basically a set of instruments which are used by the central bank to control the money supply to achieve the overall objectives of inflation control, providing sufficient liquidity for the businesses, etc. In this monetary policy, there are two types of step. One is the quantitative step, another is the qualitative step. In the quantitative step, primarily it works through CRR, SLR, repo rate and MSF, right? So this time the bank has actually worked through all these four measures. We will see one by one. First of all, the bank has continued accommodative stance. What is the meaning of accommodative stance, right? So we have three kinds of monetary policy stance. This accommodative stance is used when there is a slowdown, when there is a recession. So what are the characteristics of the slowdown? The characteristics include reduction in the consumption demand, reduction in the cash availability with the people, and because of that people are in search of the cash. So at this time the RBI follows expansionary monetary policy. Expansionary monetary policy means more and more cash is put into the pocket of the public. So liquidity is increased, the repo rate is decreased, interest rates are decreased, so that more and more people can get the loan and there is no shortage of money in the hands of people. So RBI may reduce the policy rate to increase the money supply, and policy rates normally decrease. So policy rate here means primarily repo rate, right? So this is the meaning of accommodative stance. Neutral stance means when the inflation is stable and the RBI can either increase or decrease depending upon the other factors, and policy rate can move in any direction. Calibrated tightening it happens when there are concerns of higher rate of inflation and the RBI wants to control the money supply. In this case, RBI will increase the interest rate, right? So coming back, accommodative stance. So maintaining the accommodative stance of the monetary policy, it reduced the policy rate. Policy rate basically means the repo rate by 75 basis points. That means 0.75% to 4.4%. What is the meaning of repo rate? So repo rate basically means the rate of interest at which RBI provides the liquidity or cash, right, to the commercial bank, right? And this commercial bank in return of getting this cash puts some government securities with the RBI as the collateral, right? And there is a repurchase agreement with regard to this government security. So repo rate is basically the anchor rate. It actually creates the foundation for other rates like the reverse repo rate, bank rate, MSF rate, etc. So repo rate, this time it has been decreased from 5.15% to 4.4%. So there is a sudden decrease of 0.75%, right? So there is a sudden decrease of 0.75%. So this is in consistency with the accommodative stance of the RBI monetary policy, which has been continuing for last more than 1 year, right? Coming to the reverse repo rate. What is the meaning of reverse repo rate? Reverse repo rate is completely opposite of the repo rate. So in case of reverse repo rate, RBI takes loan from the commercial bank and gives the security to the commercial bank with a repurchase agreement. So reverse repo rate is the rate of interest at which RBI takes loan from the commercial bank. Now question is, which interest rate should be higher, the repo rate or reverse repo rate? So repo rate is basically the lending rate from the side of RBI, and reverse repo rate is basically the rate at which the loan is being given from commercial bank to RBI, or in other words, can we say the rate of interest at which the commercial banks are depositing their money with the RBI, because RBI is basically the bank of the commercial bank. So in a way, when RBI is taking loan from the commercial bank, we can say that actually commercial banks are depositing the money with the RBI, right? So because RBI is the bank of the bank, so RBI will always try to earn the profit from any transaction. So in case of repo rate versus reverse repo rate, the repo rate will always be kept high. So RBI will always give the loan to the commercial bank at higher rate of interest as compared to the rate of interest which it gives whenever it takes loan from the commercial bank. So the reverse repo rate is always higher than the repo rate. Reverse repo rate is always lower than the repo rate. Repo rate is always higher than the reverse repo rate. Now earlier, this if we see the relationship between the repo rate and reverse repo rate, earlier reverse repo rate was determined by reducing from repo rate 0.25%. So when repo rate was 5.15%, we reduced 0.25%. Reverse repo rate was 4.9%. Now, after yesterday's policy, how we are calculating? So repo rate is 4.4%, and this difference of 0.25% is basically increased to 0.4%, and now the reverse repo rate stands at 4%. Now just understand that why we have changed this 0.25% to 0.4%. Earlier the difference between the repo rate and reverse repo rate was 0.25%. Now this is 0.4%. Why this rate has been, why this gap has been increased? By increasing this gap, RBI is saying that please don't bring the money to me, right? Earlier when bank were depositing the money with the RBI was offering 4.9% interest rate to the bank. Now RBI is saying that I will offer only 4%. Even this if it was 0.25% over here, then it would have been 4.15%. RBI is saying no, I will not offer this interest. I will offer only 4% interest rate. So bank will be discouraged to come to the RBI, and bank will be encouraged to go to the general public. So that will actually enhance the money supply in the hand of the public, because banks, instead of going to the RBI, will actually lend to the public, because they are not getting sufficient rate of interest from the RBI. So RBI actually want that money should go to the people. RBI wants to expand the liquidity. Therefore, this 0.25% has been increased to the 0.4%. Now you see it sets. So what is fixed rate, reverse repo rate? Now why we said fixed rate? Because this is fixed. This is fixed unless and until the RBI changes this. There is no contingency. There is no floating interest rate. It is not depending upon any auction. So this is fixed rate. It sets the floor of the liquidity adjustment facility corridor. So liquidity adjustment facility is the facility under which both repo rate and reverse repo rate comes. Corridor basically, here corridor basically means that repo rate is one thing. So as of now, this repo rate is 4.4%. Below this we have reverse repo rate. This is 4%. And above this we have marginal standing facility rate and bank rate, which we are going to discuss just after this. So MSF is basically MSF is basically 4.65%, right? So difference between MSF and repo is 0.25%. It is unchanged. Earlier also it was 0.25%, and difference between repo rate and reverse repo rate is 0.5%. So overall, if we add 0.25% difference and 0.4% difference, this liquidity corridor is now 0.65%. Earlier this liquidity corridor was 0.5%. So this liquidity corridor has been increased, which is now asymmetrical corridor. Asymmetrical because earlier it was symmetrical, when here the difference between the MSF and repo was 0.25% and difference between repo and reverse repo was 0.25%. Now difference between MSF and repo is 0.25% and difference between repo and reverse repo rate is 0.4%. So there is a asymmetry. The purpose of this measure relating to reverse repo rate is to make it relatively unattractive for the bank to passively deposit the money with the RBI. So RBI don't want that the bank keep the money with the RBI, and instead to use these funds for on lending to the productive sectors. So it wants the bank lend this money to the productive sectors of the economy. Targeted long-term repo rate operations. So the repo rate that we discussed earlier, that is called fixed repo rate or short-term repo rate, right? Here we are talking about long-term repo rate operation, right? So long-term repo rate operation, how it is different from the normal repo rate operation. Normal repo rate operation is for overnight, for one day, right? This long-term repo rate operation is for more than one day. It can exceed up to 3 years, right? So this is one additional tool which has been used by the RBI in the recent time to provide long-term liquidity to the bank up to the period of 3 years. This long-term repo rate can be of two types. It can be either fixed rate. That means the RBI will offer the long-term repo rate equal to repo rate. The rate of interest will be equal to repo rate, but the periodicity will be more than repo rate. The period will expand up to 3 years. So fixed rate, long-term repo was used by the RBI in the recent time only, and now the RBI is using variable rate, long-term repo rate. In the variable rate, it is the bank, the commercial bank who wants to take the loan from the RBI. The commercial bank will quote something extra from the repo rate, and an auction will be happening. In the auction process, multiple banks will be participating, and whichever bank quotes highest rate, that bank will actually get the loan from the RBI under the long-term repo operations. So actually this is the variable, the appropriate or the complete name is variable long-term repo operations. So RBI will conduct the auctions of targeted terms repo of up to 3 years tenor. Tenor basically means the duration of appropriate sizes at a floating rate. Floating means variable rate, changing rate. It is not the fixed rate. Linked to the policy repo rate. So how this will be linked? For example, the policy repo rate is 4.4%. So some bank will come and say I will offer 0.2% extra. Some bank will say I will offer 0.1% extra. So whichever bank offers highest amount, that bank will get the loan. Liquidity availed under the scheme by the bank has to be deployed in the investment grade, corporate bond, commercial paper and non-convertible debenture. Now the question arises, sir, why the RBI wants to give loan to the commercial bank for a period of 3 years? The RBI wants to give this loan so that the bank can give loan to the businessman for the working capital. What is the meaning of the working capital? Working capital, so basically here working capital means the capital, the amount which is used for day-to-day operations, for keeping the stock of the raw material, for paying to the labor, for paying the electricity bill, for administrative expenses, right? So this is the amount which is different from the amount which is required for the capital expenditure, for the building making, for the machinery, for technology acquisition. No, that is the capital required. That is the basically fixed capital. Here we are talking about the working capital. Working capital means which is required for day-to-day operations. So in the present time, when the economy is in the crisis, RBI wants to give the working capital to the businesses. So that is why this long-term repo has been offered. And how this money will be given from the side of bank to the companies? So this will be given in 3 different forms. Either the bank will be giving loan in the form of corporate bond, or they will be investing in the commercial paper, or they will be investing in the non-convertible debenture. Now let us see each one of them. What is the